Hello humans, this is Jason, and today I'm going to try playing Rogue Planet from Bombshell Games, written by Brent Spivey. Now this is an interesting game because it's a war game that's not caught up in all the war game baggage. I've heard it described as abstract, but I think it's more like it's more board gamey and less caught up in what would really happen. So what you end up with is a fun, strategic, anything goes science fantasy skirmish game. And now for some introductions. Over on this side, we have Senga's crew. There's the hero Senga, of course, with her gravity hammer frying pan, and her expendable luggage bearer pawns, and a goblin standard bearer. She's backed up by a goblin on an orb bike and a goblin rifleman, but her heavy hitter is the Beast Lord with a bloody great axe. On the other side is Verdun's team, which consists of Verdun, with his bodyguard Izzy, fire support Blue, and his alien pet Thing. In support, he's got a squad of droids and the DP-9 heavy weapons platform. These are just some models I had in my collection. You can pretty much use anything you want. Based on the composition of your force, each side gets an amount of energy, represented by those little white beads, that they can use to buy off damage during the fight. Alright, let's do this thing then. Every round starts with an action roll. Both sides roll a d6 to see how many action points they get. After the first turn you can just default to 3, but I always forget to do that. Also, Senga's standard bearer lets her roll 2 dice and keep the best, which in my experience is crazy powerful and awesome. So, Senga gets a 2 and a 3, and Verdun gets a 4. Now, because Verdun rolled higher, he gets to choose who goes first. And he's going to go ahead and take the first turn himself. So to start off, we'll spend an action point. Then I'll move this guy in a straight line as far as I want until he is interrupted by an enemy or an object. Then I'll spend my second action point, and I'll activate the droid squad right here. Now with the terrain as a consideration, I can only move them up to here, because while normally you can move in a straight line as far as you want, if you cross terrain, once you cross it, you can't go back out the other side of it to the other end. You have to stop there. Okay then, with this third action point, Verdun is going to move up here in contact with this container, and then I'll move all of his retainer pawns with him. They don't actually take up space, they're more like walking hit points with special abilities, so you could walk through them, shoot through them. They don't really count on the table, they're just pretty. Now with my final action point, I'm going to have the droid squad move up here next to this container. Now they can't come into contact with this container because they cross this terrain edge here, and the penalty for being slowed down is not being able to come into contact with other terrain features or enemies. And that uses up all of Verdun's action points, so now it's Senga's turn to go. She'll use her first action point to move in a straight line up to here. And I move her pawns up to hang out with her. Again, they don't take up space, they're not really on the board, they're just glorified tokens. Her second action token will be spent to activate the Beast Lord. He moves in a straight line, and no one can see him, but you know what? They don't have any action points to react with, so I'm going to go ahead and push him out a little farther so that he can line up for a shot later. Yeah, that's the idea. And with the final action point, we'll move the Beast Lord up closer to the enemy in a straight line, of course, which puts him in cover here, which isn't so bad. A lot of maneuvering in the first round. Let's see if we can get some more action in the second round. Time for action points. Senga gets 2 and a 5, and Verdun gets 5. A tie, so control goes to the side that didn't have it last time, which in this case means Senga. She'll spend an action point to activate the Orb Bike Rider. Now, he wants to move up here along his path, but that will open him up to opportunity fire from the droid squad. So he's going to have to roll to complete his movement, even though he normally wouldn't have to roll to move. A skill roll is 2d6. 6 or less is a failure, 10 or better is a success, and anything in between is a partial success. Opportunity fire also adds an opportunity fire rogue die, which cancels out any dice that it matches. He gets a 3 and a 1. The rogue die doesn't match, so it has no effect, and a total of 3 is a failure. So his movement ends, and his opponent gets to stagger him up to standard FX range in any direction. Also, because he failed, in addition to any other consequences, one of the enemy gets to make a standard move action. So we're going to have these droids move over to here, which probably wasn't too smart, because with her next action point, Senga is going to come get them. She's going to try to move up into contact, but they're going to spend an action point for opportunity fire. She gets a 10 and the rogue die doesn't match, so she ignores them and moves forward into contact. And with her next action point, she'll make a melee attack against the droids. The difference in their stats is 2, and her frying pan gravity hammer gives her a +1 for a total of 3, which is the maximum bonus you can get on a roll. She also rolls a powered weapon rogue die, which has special abilities on a match. She gets a 12. That's a success. So she does the stat difference in damage, which is 2. However, her rogue die is a matching 6, which means she does 6 more damage on top of that for a total of 8. Squads don't use energy, they just lose 1 guy per damage, so that's all of them. And with the next action point, we'll activate the Beast Lord. Now, I want him to move over here, but the DP9 is going to opportunity fire him when he does so. That's going to cost him a token, though. The roll is 7, and there's no match in the rogue die, so he moves successfully. Or at least partially successfully. On a partial success, he succeeds, but the enemy does get to make a free move. And so VERDUN will move up here into cover, and his pawns will follow him so I don't lose track of them. With his last action point, the Beast Lord will move into contact with the DP9, who will of course opportunity fire. And that will cost him an action point. The Beast Lord rolls to move. 10 is a complete success. The rogue die doesn't match, so he moves without a problem. Base width matters, but these pawns over here, they're not really there, so he can move through them freely. And that brings us to VERDUN's turn. He'll spend an action point to activate the DP9, and it will try to stab the Beast Lord. The stat difference is -2, and with no other modifiers, that gives him a 6. That's a failure, so the Beast Lord hits the DP9 for the stat difference of 2. I don't want to lose the DP9 just yet, so I spend the 2 energy to save him. And that takes us to the next round. Senga gets 6 and a 2 for 6, and VERDUN gets a 5. Senga will go first and spend an action point to activate the Beast Lord, who will attack DP9 here. He rolls at +2 and gets an 8, a partial success. A partial success only does 1 damage versus DP9's heavy armor, so I have to spend 1 energy to save him. A partial success also gives the enemy a free move, so I'm going to move VERDUN and move him into contact with the Beast Lord. This seems to be working, so the Beast Lord will attack again. He gets the same +2 as before, but -1 for VERDUN on his back, and he gets a 9. That's 1 point of damage to DP9, which I'll pay for with an energy. Technically, that partial success gives VERDUN a free move, but he has nobody to move right now. Here's where I activate Senga, but totally forget to pay for her activation points until after I've moved her twice. So Senga spends an action point to run up the middle here. However, DP9 wants to opportunity fire, so I have to stop her back here earlier on the path. And that costs him an activation point, because he's not a cheater like Senga is. She rolls to move. 5, failure, and there's a matching 4 in the rogue die. So she takes 4 points of damage, except that heroes can only ever take 1 point of damage. And that damage is paid for in pawns, not energy, so that poor luggage bearer dies. And Senga is staggered 1 standard FX into this difficult terrain. Senga then forgets to spend another activation point to move up on the DP9, who will of course opportunity fire again. He also forgets to spend an activation point, and she scores a 12 with no rogue die match. Unfortunately, she can't actually contact DP9 because she crossed over this terrain border earlier. Now, normally a unit can't take 3 actions in a row, but Senga and VERDUN are heroes, and they can take 3 actions in a row, but no more than that. They do, however, have to pay for their actions still, and I have forgotten here. Sorry. So with her third action, that she is totally cheating and not paying for, Senga moves into contact with the DP9, who will spend an action point to counterfire. Her roll to move is a 5 with a matching 3 in the rogue die. So she takes 3 damage, but heroes can only ever take 1 damage, and so one of these pawns has to die. And then Senga is staggered standard FX distance. Now, having taken 3 actions, even as a hero, she can't go again, So instead I'll activate the Orb Biker. I can't contact the wall though, because I crossed the terrain border over here. However, Verdun sees him coming and turns around to Opportunity Fire. The biker rolls a 7 with no match on the rogue die. That's a partial success, but Verdun has no one to move, so that's that. Oops, forgot to pay for the Opportunity Fire. There. Spending another action point in the biker, he shoots at Verdun, who will spend a point to shoot back. The stat difference is -3, and he gets a 6, which is a miss, but no match on the rogue die. The biker has to stop, and he should also be staggered, but I forgot. And that's the end of the turn. Rolling for action points, Verdun gets 6, and Senga gets just 3. So Verdun will go first, and he'll spend his first action point to try to have the DP9 break away from the Beast Lord over here. But he'll have to roll for it. A 9 means he succeeds, but one of the enemy gets a free move, and that will be Senga. Hey there, DP9. So now I'll have DP9 go again by spending another action point. His extended range rifle lets him shoot past Senga and into the Beast Lord. The modifiers all cancel each other out, so boxcars. Doubles on a success is a critical, and a critical on a heavy does the stat difference in damage, which in this case is 2 points. And I'll use 2 energy to pay for that. So now Verdun will take a shot at the biker over here, so that costs an action point, and the biker will return fire. An 8 is a hit, but partial successes only do 1 damage to medium armor. The enemy still gets a free move, but once again I forgot. Verdun spends an action point to shoot again, the biker spends an action point to return fire again, and Verdun misses. With his free move, the biker will move up here into cover behind this wall. Verdun then fires at this guy one more time and hits for 1 point of damage. With his last action, DP9 will fire at the Beast Lord one more time, and miss. On her turn, Senga will spend her last action point to attack DP9 in melee with her Gravity Hammer Frying Pan. She hits for a point of damage, and now the Gravity Hammer throws DP9 into this building. Up to 2 standard effects. But it has to be this way, because that's what I declared. For collisions, heavy units roll a D8, and medium obstacles roll a D6. The building loses and is destroyed. Next turn, they both get 6 action points. Senga wins the initiative, but lets Verdun go first. DP9 will shoot at Senga, and that'll cost him an action point, and also one from her as she returns fire. He'll also spend another point to go full auto for +3. That's a miss, and a match on the rogue die hits him for 5 damage, and with no energy left to soak that, he is destroyed. As for the mission endgame rules, with all of his minions destroyed, Verdun loses. And that's Bombshell Games' Rogue Planet. Now I've got to see what other games I can play. Don't forget to subscribe. Giselato Vito.